Hello, we're going to have a quick look at negative and fractional indices. This should hopefully give you a little bit of a helping hand with the questions that are on the MathsWatch worksheets on SharePoint. Just as a quick brief overview of what fractional indices are, what negative indices are, and how we can combine those together to have a look at some questions and make use of our index laws that we looked at last time. So here we're going to make use of our index laws to try and sort of just deduce what this power of a half actually means. So if I've got 25 to the power of a half and I multiply it by another 25 to the power of a half, we know that when the bases are the same, the base doesn't change, but the powers add together. So half and a half is 1. So 25 to the power of a half multiplied by 25 to the power of a half is just 25. So we want to then think, well, I've got some number, I multiply it by itself, I get 25. Well, we know what that is, don't we? Because 5 times 5 is 25. So what it's actually telling us here is that this power of a half is a square root. It's asking us to square root 25, that gives us 5. And it works the same for all other sorts of roots as well. If this power was a third, it would be the cube root. If it's the power of a quarter, it would be the fourth root, and so on. So let's have a look at some examples of that so we can see how it is that we can approach these questions with that in mind. So power of a half is square rooting. So the square root of 16 is just 4, because 4 times 4 will give me 16. Second question, power of a half is square rooting. So the square root of 100 is 10. Again, 10 times 10 will give me 100. Here, power of a third, this is cube rooting. So what is the cube root of 125? If you know your cube numbers, which you should, then you get 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Times 5 again is 125. The cube root of 64, so that's going to be 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Times 4 again will give me 64. Power of a third here with cube rooting. Now, these kind of questions here, so 8 to the power of 2/3, they often give people a little bit of cause for concern, because you've not just got the third in there, you've got a 2 in there as well. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to appeal to our third index law, which was that if I have 8 to the power of a third and then square it, that's the same as this, because I would actually just multiply these two powers together, and a third times by 2 would give me 2/3. So what it's actually asking us to do, and we don't need to separate it like this every time, but this is how we think of it, is we're cube rooting 8, because that's what power of a third does. So the cube root of 8 is 2, and then we're squaring it. So here I cube root 8, that gives me 2, and then I square it, so it's going to give me 4. So the cube root of 8 here is 2, and then we're squaring it, and that gives me 4. So this here is my thought process, and you can write this out should you wish to, separate it like this. However, you might well be able to start getting to a point of not needing to separate it out like this, and you can just sort of work it in your head. I'm cube rooting here, so cube root of 8 is 2, and then I'm squaring it, gives me 4. So let's have a look at some of these negative indices. Let's just shuffle this down so that you can see. There we go. Right, so with negative indices, it's all about patterns. So here I've got 2 to the power of 4 is 16, 2 cubed is 8, 2 to the 4 is 2 squared is 4, and 2 to the 1 is 2. So each time I'm halving, half it, half it, half it, half it again will give me 1, and we know that anything to the power of 0 is 1. That's our special case from last time. Half it again, we get 1/2. Half that again, we get a quarter. Well, that's just the same as 1 over 2 squared. Half that again, I get an 1/8, which is the same as 1 over 2 cubed. So when I'm working with negative indices, all I need to do is sort of ignore the minus there entirely. So with this one here, I would do 2 cubed, which is 8. The negative then tells me it's 1 over. This is a process called taking the reciprocal. So these negative powers are the reciprocals of the positive powers. So here 2 squared is 4, 2 to the negative 2 is 1 over 4. 2 cubed is 8, 2 to the negative 3 is 1 over 8. So let's use that. So 3 squared is 9. Negative power tells me it's the reciprocal, so it's 1 over 9. Second question, 5 cubed is 125. The negative power tells me that it's the reciprocal of that, so it's 1 over 125. Third question, 10 to the power of 3 is 1000. The negative power tells me that it's 1 over 1000, it's the reciprocal. Here we've got a combination of two. We've got a negative power and we've got our fractional power from before. Remember, a power of a third means cube root, so the cube root of 8 is 2. The negative power tells me it's the reciprocal of that, so it's 1 over 2. And then here we've got multiple things all rolled into one. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to think first and foremost what 125 to the power of 2/3 is, because if I work that out, then the negative power here just tells me it's the reciprocal of whatever answer I get. So 125 to the power of 2/3. Again, if you wish to, you can think of it like this: 125 to the power of a third, and then squared. So the cube root of 125 is 5. And then we still need to square it. Square of 5 is 25. So if 125 to the power of 2/3 is 25, 125 to the power of negative 2/3 is the reciprocal of that, which is 1 over 25. Hopefully this helps you with the questions on SharePoint. The MathsWatch questions for this week are all about fractional and negative indices, and also some of your index laws. I'm going to be doing another video later on this week about surds and simplification, and some things like rationalising the denominator, which will hopefully be useful for some of the work towards the end of this week and then after the Easter break.